I am a critic, I am a critic, I am a critic, I am a critic, I am a critic.
What is up, opinionators? I am the I am a critic, and it is time for me to review what is new for you, and it is so great to be back amongst the opinionation, if you're in fact still there. So a lot's happened since I last put a video up. I have moved house. I have got a brand new job that allows me to work abroad for months at a time. Makes reviewing films kind of difficult. Anyway, as I said, it is time for me to review something that is new, and it's a film I saw last night. I've had time to mull it over, and that film is Justice League! So Justice League is the fourth movie in the DC Universe movies, and let's just say DC have a lot of pressure here, and they've been really trying to catch up with Marvel for the last few years. I mean, they've had, what, Man of Steel, and then suddenly it was Batman v Superman, out of nowhere, which also involved Lex Luthor, Wonder Woman, Doomsday, and a whole bunch of other comic things that got a lot of people very angry. And then we had Suicide Squad, which threw a bunch of villains that no one had seen on screen together. We'd also never really seen any of those villains in movies before, so that was kind of weird. And then we had Wonder Woman, which was great! And now we have Ben Affleck returning as Batman and Gal Gadot returning as Wonder Woman. They were both pretty much universally loved by everyone, so good stuff. But now we have to introduce Aquaman. Now we have to introduce The Flash. Now we have to introduce Cyborg. So as you can probably tell, there's quite a lot of work here to be done. Introducing a lot of characters into a Justice League movie? It's not going to be perfect. And just so you guys know, this is a spoiler-free review, so no matter what happens, I will not be spoiling any major plot points in the movie, or any real plot points at all, so please be nice in the comments as well. We don't want to spoil it for everybody. We're all friends here. So let's start this review, and let's find out if the comic is done justice. I'll see my way out. So as always, I'm going to start with the positives. The biggest positive to come out of Justice League, absolutely to me anyway, is the cast. I thought the cast were great. I thought Ben Affleck was great as Batman, again. I thought Gal Gadot was great as Wonder Woman, again. And even the new cast I thought were really good as well. I thought Ezra Miller was great as The Flash, I thought Jason Momoa was great as Aquaman, and I also thought Ray Fisher was really good as Cyborg. And all the actors seemed to be having quite a bit of fun in this movie. There was actually quite a good light-hearted vibe. I know a lot of people have said in other reviews that it's like, oh, it's very similar to Marvel, and it feels like they're just trying to do a Marvel movie, and I was like, no, it feels more like they're trying to do a comic book movie, to me. Like, it feels more like they're trying to really capture the light-hearted, fun side of DC, because, as we all know, DC have definitely made a habit of making dark, broody, really gritty adult movies. Not adult movies. Very different. But you know, they've tried to make it a lot more gritty and realistic and sort of down to earth, but it was actually quite fun to see them just sort of accept the fact that, yes, Justice League is basically made up of gods, so let's have a bit of fun with that. And they really do. There's a lot of really good scenes in this movie. There's actually some really good moments, and you can kind of tell where Joss Whedon directed a lot of the scenes, because there's some really funny scenes involving the lasso of truth, and yeah, let's just say I do not see Zack Snyder having any input in that. And I thought the action in this movie was actually pretty good as well. It had a pace to it. It was really forward-moving, which is quite nice considering most of Zack Snyder's action sounds and looks like this. There's a lot of shots that are evidently Zack Snyder as well. There's a lot of action shots that stop in big slow motion moments before speeding up again. But it's really cool, and it actually has a lot more pace to it than previous DC movies. And I also really like the way they handled a certain character who everyone except for everyone thought was dead. The way he comes back is really well handled. I really like the way it was done. And if you've read the comics or seen the DC animated movies, you also know that the Justice League can sometimes have quite a bit of difficulty within their own team. And this is actually quite well handled here as well. And you can tell they're really in it for the long haul. There's a lot of effort being put in by the cast. And also, I'm not going to say anything about what happens in them, but by God, stick around during the credits. The mid-credit sequence and the post-credit sequence are both worth it if you are fans of DC. And now we move on to the problems, and I think most people will understand why there are problems, especially in a movie where 4 out of the 6 Justice League members haven't actually had their own standalone movies yet. Whether you like Marvel or not, at least they did that part right. So with a movie like this, they have to introduce a lot of characters, and the way they introduce them is usually really good, but because they're all overlapping with each other, and they all have to explain kind of what happened to them, how they got there in the first place, it can get kind of separate. It doesn't feel necessarily like a proper flowing narrative. Though I will say, sorry, as a quick side note, the flow of the film is actually surprisingly good considering essentially it had two directors. So props to Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon for actually putting together a consistent film. But anyway, so yeah, the scenes can feel kind of separate. It doesn't feel like a properly coherent narrative, especially kind of early on. Because we meet Aquaman, we meet the Flash, we meet Cyborg, and they have to kind of explain what happened to all of them. And it could have been worse, but it definitely could have been better. So the DC Universe is kind of relying on the fact that fans have done their homework already. And this is even in the music. Like, seriously, Danny Elfman puts in the original Batman theme from the 1989 movie. Why? They're totally separate universes. But that's what I mean when I say it feels like it's trusting its audience to have already done their homework before they've actually seen these movies. So you kind of have to give credit to Marvel there for the fact that they actually took time to build the characters before putting them all together. So you actually got a good understanding of each character, why they're there, what their motivations are, what their powers are. So in this movie we know that Flash is fast. We get that pretty well explained. We know that Aquaman has the power to control water, talk through water, to fish. But then Cyborg was the weakest part of this movie to me. Because the explanation of his power is really confusing. Like, I'm not going to say what it is, but basically it's changing throughout the film. And they even say that in the film. It's kind of jarring. Inevitably, his powers evolve into what's exactly convenient in that moment for the story. So you'll get scenes a bit like this. My powers are growing all the time. But this thing's happening right over here. We need help here, right now. Oh, I just got a power. Oh, I can do that. Oh, yay? Oh yeah, and there's also this kind of scene near the beginning that shows Wonder Woman kicking some ass, showing her doing her normal sort of day-to-day Wonder Woman-y things. Basically, there's a criminal action happening, and Wonder Woman's gonna go and deal with it. It felt a bit like an episode of The Flash, if you know what I mean. Like, it's a very sort of self-contained little plot, but it kind of felt a bit out of place in the rest of the movie, though I will say the action was pretty good. So again, I don't want to spoil it, but there are references. There's a very small, brief reference to the Green Lanterns, but it's like a tiny reference, so it's not really a spoiler because it's nothing really to do with the plot. It's just like background noise. And it does make you go, ugh, because if they had actually taken the time to make the solo movies before all of them coming together here, it would have been so much better, because then you could have had the Superman movie, the Batman movie, the Wonder Woman movie, Green Lantern movie, the Flash movie, the Cyborg movie, the Aquaman movie. That is 7 movies. But then, once the Justice League come together, it's such a big deal then. But we don't get that here. And it is disappointing if you've been waiting for so long. Yes, it's great to see the Justice League on screen for the first time ever in a live-action movie. But it could have been so much better, and that's kind of the biggest flaw here. And while we can probably all agree that Marvel's biggest flaw is those really not very memorable villains, this film suffers from the same. So Steppenwolf is the villain of Justice League, and he is a big CG monster ready to do big CG things to a big CG landscape. He's a very forgettable villain. Think of Malekith, yes that is his name, from Thor the Dark World, I know you'd forgotten. Give him a bit more dialogue in English, and give him a tiny bit more of an actual narrative, and you've got Steppenwolf. Basically, he wants to destroy the world for reasons unbeknownst to us, and shock of shocks, he doesn't. Because, you know, it wouldn't be a very good Justice League movie if the Justice League lost, so that's probably as close to a spoiler as you're gonna get from me. So the narrative inconsistencies are definitely the main issue, along with a very weak villain, but the rest of the movie is actually pretty good. It's fun, it's not too long, which is also great. It's just scratching the 2-hour mark, I think. Whether they'll get better villains is a total mystery, because look, Marvel's still very rarely coming up with good villains. I can think of 2 off the cuff: Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming and Loki. But anyway, aside from that, those are negatives, but it doesn't really hinder the fact that this is a pretty good Justice League movie. The characters are likeable, it's fast-paced, yes it's a bit inconsistent, but the plot keeps moving. The plot gets you from A to B at a pretty good pace. You want to see the Justice League uniting for the first time, you see that. You want to see them fighting a big bad guy, you see that. You want to see them arguing amongst each other, showing a bit of character. and there are scenes like that. I would actually put some of those scenes up there with the best parts of the movie. There's really good funny moments, but then there's some really good dramatic moments as well when the team aren't really getting along. And I did come out of the cinema going, that wasn't the best DC movie, that's still Wonder Woman in case you're wondering, but it's definitely not the worst, and it's actually pretty good. Which is why I have to say, in my opinion, Justice League gets a 6.5 out of 10. So that's my review of Justice League. But of course, guys, that's just my opinion. You're the opinionators. Please put your opinions down in the comment section below. Be nice to each other. The whole Marvel DC war thing, it's so pointless. Like, people are allowed to like both, or neither, or one or the other. It doesn't make them right, because guess what? Opinions are subjective, so be nice to each other, especially in my comment section, because I'll know. And of course, if you like what you've seen here and you like my review, please hit the like button, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And if you didn't like the review, I'm genuinely astonished that you've made it this far. Or maybe you've just skipped to the end and now you're getting a weird sense of warmth and fuzziness because I'm saying that you've made it this far, and yeah, I have no idea where I'm going with this. I am the I'm a Critic, and I'll be back again with something else new for you, hopefully actually quite soon, and I'll see you later.